Hello, everyone. We're just going to wait a few more minutes to see who else is going to be coming in and joining us. I'm Kerriann Flanagan Brosky, and we have here Joe Giaquinto, who's a medium and a paranormal investigator. And this is the first of our 4-week Zoom scheduled webinars. So it's the first time we're doing this. So we will see how it goes, and I hope you find what we talk about tonight to be interesting. So we'll just wait a couple more minutes. In the meantime, I'll tell you that we will take some questions towards the end. I believe there's a chat button on the bottom that you can, send me a question. So I just want to see now. I'm hoping everyone can hear me. Let's see. All right. I'm going to see. Okay, I hear someone sent me a chat saying that they can hear me. So
Great.
if we could get another one, make sure that everyone can hear. Just so everyone knows, I'm not the technical person in this group.
What Kerriann doesn't know is I'm not either. But I just led her on.
She was definitely the technical person here. All right.
I remember when we were doing the radio show and the internet was hit and miss, like the Blog Talk Radio, sometimes the podcast would drop the connection.
Mm-hmm.
And Kerriann would say, Joe has gone to the other side of the veil. And then she would always say, if anyone's out there in the chat room, could you let me know that you can still hear me so I could still do the show?
Yes.
I'm gone. I'm offline. I'm like frantically trying to dial back in, but she's like, oh, just as long as they can hear me, the show is good.
Right, yeah, because we did do a radio show that was for 3 years, Joe.
3 years, I think it was 136 episodes, right?
Okay.
Something like that.
Okay, I got another one. All right.
Yay.
Deborah just told me that she can hear us perfectly.
Great.
All right, great. So I'm going to assume that everyone else can. If you can't or have any problems, I have my little chat thing here. Again, I'm trying to feel this out. We've done a couple of practice sessions, but I'm trying to do multiple things on the screen here. So, all right, I think we will get started. It is 7:00 p.m. And tonight we are going to be talking about ghost investigating questions answered. Now, many of you have probably heard Joe and I during our in-person lectures talk about the books and everything like that. So we're going to do a little bit something different tonight, because people always ask, like, how does a book get written? And so we're going to go over that. We're going to play EVPs towards the end of the night, which is going to be really exciting. You'll see photographs of us on assignment, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And again, we'll take questions towards the end. So for those of you who may not know us, I'll give you a little bit about our background. My degree is actually in photography. I went to Long Island University at CW Post, where I studied photojournalism, and I had worked for Newsday as a photographer for a while. When I started working for local newspapers, I moved to Huntington, and I became interested in preserving our town's history. At that point, I started my own column for a local newspaper called Inside Huntington. And that led me to write 2 books in the in the mid-90s. It was 1995 and 1997. And when you're writing about an older home or, any kind of historical place, there's always a ghost story or two that seems to come along with it. So I had included those stories in the 2 original Huntington books. As time went on, I was lecturing frequently. I was first vice president of the Huntington Historical Society. And people would say to me, why don't you do a book just on ghosts? And I didn't want to be considered as a ghost buster. I wanted to be considered a, reputable historian and author. So I had put it on the side for a while. But as time went on, more and more people kept saying, why don't you do this ghost book? And then finally, the Huntington Historical Society had asked me around Halloween if I could maybe combine some of the ghost stories from both of the Huntington books and put a lecture together. And it was so successful. I mean, the barn holds around 50 people, and I think we had about 100 people show up. And one of them in one of the years was Joe Giaquinto. And after all these people asking me for a number of years to do a ghost related book, I finally decided to do it. And I asked him right on the spot, would you join me in this endeavor as a medium and a paranormal investigator? So we started working together in 2005. And it was very out of character for me at the time to just ask him out of the blue without knowing anything about him. And it was always a joke between us because I came home and I said to my husband, I said, oh my God, what did I do asking Joe to work with me? I said, he could be an axe murderer for all I know. But as time went on, you could see him alive and well, and Joe hasn't killed me off yet. And we've had some great adventures over the past several years. So just so you know, I've written 8 books. I'm working on my 9th book. So I wrote Ghosts of Long Island, Stories of the Paranormal, Ghosts of Long Island 2, more Stories of the Paranormal. I've written 1 novel called The Metal that has to do with Padre Pio, the saint who bore the stigmata. If you're interested in that, I'm doing a webinar next Tuesday, actually, on that topic. I also co-authored an Italian cookbook with Mr. Sausage in Huntington, and no, the cookbook's not haunted. I get a lot of people asking me that question, but we do have haunted restaurants in the book. My latest books are Historic Haunts of Long Island, which is a combination of the original Ghosts of Long Island books and 10 brand new stories, and Historic Crimes of Long Island, which is not ghost related. For this next book, I'm working on my 9th book, Haunted Long Island Mysteries. It will be out next fall, and I pray that we will be back and working in live audiences, because I'm used to traveling around with Joe in the month of October and November and doing live presentations and lectures. So hopefully by the time that book comes out, things will be better. And Joe and I have gone to, let's see, how many have we done so far? 15, 16, no, actually, or 16, or 17, because we have one more assignment left to do. And it was a little challenging with the coronavirus, having to finish up stories for the book, but it's almost done, and it will be in my publisher's hands by the end of January. So we're working on that now. So I'd like Joe to tell you just briefly for a few minutes his road to mediumship and how he became a paranormal investigator.
Well, I was born, and Luke Skywalker said, use the Force. No. What happened was, I don't know, what did happen? Oh, yes, 1980. I had the fortune or misfortune of moving into a very haunted house. And I got kicked out by the ghost after 2 weeks. And so that piqued my interest into what kind of energies existed that weren't, our normal physical plane. So I started researching a bit and got involved with the American Society of Psychical Research in New York, and joined a couple of paranormal investigators, and we went on some ghost hunts together. And after a while, that kind of petered out, and I went out to the West Coast. And when I came back, there was this Kerriann lady that was doing this Halloween lecture at the Conklin Barn. So my sister had given me a flyer. I said, why don't you go to this thing? It sounds like fun. So I went to the lecture, and as Kerriann mentioned, we just immediately made a contact, and the timing was right, and I had been getting back into some investigations after moving back to New York, and she was looking for someone that might have some experience in paranormal and was intuitive, and that's what happened. And we started doing the investigations for the first book. That was 2006, was it? 2005, right?
2004, because the book came out 2005.
2005. And I remember after I met her, I had joined a local paranormal group, and I immediately started getting phenomena happening to me. It got to the point where I was kind of questioning, what's going on. And many of you have maybe had situations where you have something happen to you, and you kind of like do I tell people? Do I mention this to family? You know, they think I'm crazy. They want to put me in the loony bin or something. So that's kind of what happened in 2005, 2006. My intuitive part of my being began developing. And as Kerriann and I went on ghost investigations, I started using some of those intuitions to see what I picked up when we went to different places. And so, but other than that, my day job, I'm a computer guy. I do programming, websites, computer training. And at night and weekends, I'm a Ghostbuster. And I graduated Delphi University, Garden City. And I've lived in a few different places around the United States and enjoy traveling. And I think those experiences have helped me. There was a time when I used to work in sales and I used to be on the road all the time. And I used to stay, most people would stay in Holiday Inn hotels or, different, like corporate hotels. But I would always stay at these old haunted bed and breakfasts in like New Jersey, Pennsylvania, upstate New York, hoping I could catch a ghost, So that would be when I was on my business trips. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. I'll throw it back to Kerriann.
Okay. So now we want to tell you a little bit about how we actually do these investigations and how we come up with the stories. With the original Ghosts of Long Island book, I did include several legends and myths such as Mary's Grave, the Amityville Horror, Kings Park Psychiatric Center, but I really wanted to show the goal of this book and all of the books was to show that Long Island is more than the Amityville Horror, that it is a very spiritual place, that it's very historical. So it's very heavy on history, on local history, because we're hoping to preserve it. And what better way to preserve local history and to teach the public about history than through a ghost story? And that sort of has become what my trademark is teaching history through these ghost stories. So as time went on, we started finding other places by word of mouth. So we would go and do events and people would say to me, well, what about this place or that place? Have you researched that? I heard it's haunted. So we would go on leads and find these places. And if I thought that it was a legitimate story, we would research it further. So the second ghost book was really formed basically from what I was told from other people. With historic haunts of Long Island, it was similar. People continued to tell me about places. I actually kept a book while I was doing lectures that people could write stories that they heard, and then I would follow through if I liked them. Most of them, I would say 95% of the stories are historic in nature, but we do have some personal stories just because I'd like people to understand that ghosts and spirits are not just in historical places, that they are with us everywhere. So the other thing was with research on the internet, you can find out a lot of things. So for this last book, I was doing a lot of research looking on the internet for different historical places that may have had a ghost. And so that's how we come up with that information of the various places. The next step would be to get clearance, obviously. Sometimes these places are run by states, by the state, or if it's a restaurant, you need to get the owner's permission. So a lot of times there is a little bit of red tape, especially I have to be very careful with how I word things because, again, I want people to understand that I'm a historian, that I'm not going to do anything that's going to frighten people from going to their establishments. That's always a big question when people are not familiar with my work. Like, I don't want people to be afraid because, again, I had said earlier that this is more than the Amityville Horror. What you see on television and the movies, that is not what we do. We have a very positive attitude towards our investigation. We're not screaming at the spirits and demanding them to come out. We're very, very respectful. And because of that, we get very good results, which we will tell you about. So once we establish, some confidence with whatever the owner of, let's say, a restaurant or a historic place, then we make an appointment to go and see them and to do our actual investigation. So I ask them ahead of time if they can prepare anything for me, especially if it's through a historical society, they can get research for me ahead of time. Sometimes they have it on hand. So I'll start with that. Most of the time, I do not tell Joe much information, and he'll explain more as to why. But usually I have a better idea of what we're going into than Joe does.
Yeah.
Because yeah.
And that's good too, because you know, you are the historian, and that's your gift. And it gives a balance, you know, because if everyone's doing the same thing, everything can get muddled, and you know. But Kerriann really is the expert on all the history, and plus, Kerriann, you had gone to many of these, researched and written about many of these Gold Coast mansions before, so you already had a lot of stories.
Yes, some of them we did revisit, such as Ohika Castle was on the cover of my second Huntington book. Joe and I went back to investigate it as a ghost story as time went on. So again, the research comes from historical societies, it comes from libraries, it comes from the individuals who own these places, and from the internet. I mean, now, I prefer going to the historical sites and going through all the old papers and books, but it's not done as much anymore, to my disappointment. A lot of things are found on the internet, and I also get things from the historical societies that they will scan their copies. So, you know, as time went on, it's easier to do the research that way, but it's also not as fun as going to the historical sites and seeing the actual documents.
You know, I agree. And, you know, there's a lot of garbage on the internet, a lot of bad information.
Yeah, right. So you have to be very careful.
You have to be, right, you have to be careful of the source, if they're credible or not.
Careful of sources, and everything that I write about in the book has to be well documented in the bibliography, that I have legitimate sources. So that is an important point, Joe. Thank you very much. So once we have this information, we sit down, and I usually have prepared questions for the people we are interviewing. We generally don't like to have more than 3 people, because it changes the energy, and other people's energy can sometimes get in the way of what we're doing. So we try to keep it anywhere from 1 to 3 people when we're doing the interviewing and the investigation. So with that being said, we use recorders, and I have one right here to show you. This is a regular recorder from Radio Shack. And with that, I need to have everything obviously very accurate in the books. People have to sign a release saying that they agreed to the interview and that I could use their name and the information that they gave me. So everything is recorded for accuracy, but we also use the recorders. Joe uses 2 at the same time that I'm using mine, because we're trying to capture white noise EVPs, which are electronic voice phenomenon, or voices from the other side, which Joe is going to
my favorite topic.
Yeah. So after we do the sit-down interview, which in normal cases I would say lasts anywhere from a half hour to an hour, depending on where we are and the amount of people who are with us. So once that is done, then we usually go around, and it's great because most of the people let us have full reign of the place. And we go around, we take photographs. I use an electromagnetic field indicator, which picks up energy in a room. It could start beeping and give us an indication that there's some kind of spirit in our presence. I use 2 types of cameras. I use a Nikon D80, which is my professional camera. And then I use a Nikon Coolpix, which I call my orb camera, because like anything else, the ghosts and spirits have an easier time manipulating the smaller camera than they do the larger professional camera. Joe has a ghost box, which he's going to talk to you about in a little while. And we do ghost box recording sessions at the same time. We don't use a lot of equipment. I mean, having Joe is having our own ghost hunting tool, because he's a medium, and we also use what he gets. So we use very minimal equipment. Again, not like what you see on TV. We're not running out of vans with all this stuff, because our communication is so good with what we've been able to do with the ghost box and with the, the recorder. So, Joe, if you want to maybe talk a little bit about how we gather this evidence and, the impressions that you get.
Sure, sure. Well, first of all, going into any place, there's a few different things I like to do. The first one is, because of being a medium, let me just define quickly what a medium and a psychic is too, because there's a difference. So a psychic deals with the energy of people, where mediumship is really talking to someone that's on the other side. So you mix and match both of them. You could use them both in your investigation. So when I go to a location, as Kerriann mentioned, she doesn't tell me anything. And the first thing I do is just get a general impression of the place. Sometimes I'll take my video camera and I'll just walk around and do like a tour, and I'll make comments about what energy this room has or what I'm feeling here. Or, for example, when we went to Longwood, the Smith Estate, I remember one of our favorite things was Diane was there. Diane, right?
And this is for the new book, so you have.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, should I get that away?
Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
So we went there. We went to the front porch. I'd never been there before. Kerriann had never been there, and I walked in there. And the first thing I got the impression was this what he called the man in black. Somebody said to me, "I'm the man in black." I actually saw this figure, sort of like wearing a dark coat or something. So we commented. I said, Diane, I think, the director, I said, I'm seeing this man in black. And she was like, bingo. Like my credibility probably went up about 100 points that day, because she said there was a man in black that people had seen.
And so she saw him as well. And that's
yeah,
why
she saw him. So that was a real validation.
Right. I don't give Joe the.
You used to give me stuff.
Yeah.
That's right. Now, when we went to the Pratt Center at Southampton College, which I think now is Stony Brook, but I'm not sure. But we were in that one building, and in the far corner was a small room, small office space. And I said to Kerriann, well, I smelled antiseptic, like alcohol, like if you were treating a wound or something. And I said, Kerriann, I think that was a sick room, or that that was like a nurse's station. And you did some research and found out that it was used as an infirmary at one time. So those are the general impressions I get. Now, mediumship comes in on the second part of my gathering of evidence, where I actually will say, basically, is anyone around that wants to talk to me? So it's not just an impression of the energy or seeing an apparition or something, but actually just saying, is Mr. Smith here? And do you want to tell me anything? And I'll listen with my clairaudience, which is a form of mediumship, which is where you hear. Clairvoyance is seeing or knowing. Clairsentience is feeling. And what I do is I say, anybody here, tap me on the shoulder, or, just give me a cold spot or hot spot around me or something. Let me know you're here. So that's the second third. So I use my mediumship to also, and I write down everything, or I record. Usually what we do now, like we did with the old burying ground out in Sag Harbor, I just will go around with the recorder or my little camera phone video, and I just say, okay, I'm in this room and this is what I'm feeling. I think there's someone here named John or something. And then later on, we talk about the analysis. That's the second part. But now, so any sensations I get, sadness, happiness, I feel like crying, I feel like laughing, anything like that, those are all things that I feel for. Now, we also do what we call EVPs. I record EVPs, which stand for electronic voice phenomena. I just say EVPs. And EVPs, there's two types. There is the EVP, which is created by white noise. And white noise is the ambient noise in a room or any location. It could be the sound of a fan. It could be wind. It could be the hiss on a microphone. It could be anything, water running, a stream or a brook. And white noise EVPs, what the spirits do is they put their energy, they modulate their energy, their voice on the sine wave of the white noise. And when you take the noise away, you have the voice of the spirit talking. So it's a really clever way, the way they manipulate the information on these recorder. So when you record, you say, is anyone here? And you listen, and the recorder microphone can pick up somebody. So that's how we do the EVPs. And we'll talk about how I analyze them later, but that's another tool that I use. Kerriann mentioned the ghost meter, the electronic field indicator. And then I do something called a ghost box. Now, a ghost box EVP is just like a white noise EVP, and there are various classes of EVPs. There's class A, B, and C. Class A being the most clearest, and class B and C being very difficult to hear. But the ghost box is a little different. It's my favorite ghost box. Oh, we talked to so many spirits on this ghost box. I think we even talked to George Washington, but I'm not saying anything.
And we've used this a lot for this.
A lot, yes.
We've gotten exceptional things. We can't.
You wouldn't believe it. You're going to hear a few snippets, but there is so much when the next book comes out. Oh my God. So the ghost box is basically, now they have ones that have speech chips that basically create random voice or sound, and the idea is the spirit monkeys with the scanner in the dictionary in the ghost box with the speech chip, and they can generate an answer when you ask a question. So you go in a room, say, hi spirits, if you hear, make the ghost box say something, and you'll hear the ghost box will suddenly say spirit, like that. But these old ghost boxes were actually transistor radios, AM, FM radios, and they're the best because they use live radio stations. So what the spirits do is they monkey with the scanner. We cut the wires in the machine, in the radio, so it just keeps scanning. So the spirits stop and start the scanner from station to station so that it picks up different voices of people talking on the air. And they answer us then with clear, high fidelity speech. It's the best type of thing. You'd be amazed at some of these things. So I use all those things. I use myself as a ghost hunting tool. I use my sensations, my mediumship, my psychic awareness of stuff. I do the white noise EVPs, and I do the ghost box recording when we're on location. And that's some of the things I do to gather, and it's plenty. Gives us a good sense of what's going on. We even get some validatable, is that a word? Validatable answers, and you'll hear a few of them later. Okay, Kerriann.
I'm just, I was going to type it in, but I'll say it. I was just looking quickly at some questions. We have someone that asked, Joe mentioned that he was scared out of his apartment. Did you ever feel you needed to leave an investigation for bad energy? Only one time did that happen, and it was at the Potter's Fields in Yaphank. And I relied
we were together, yes.
We were together to answer that question. We were together. And all of a sudden, Joe had this impression that was not good. And we quickly took some photos and we left. So I do rely on Joe. That's a very good question. I do rely on Joe.
There are a few places. Of course, Kerriann and I have been working together since 2005, but I've had a few experiences, including the one upstate New York, which was bad energy. When I say I got scared out of the apartment, what really happened was there was an entity in that building, and it was an old boarding house that I was renting a space in. And I was in the heart of the house where the murder or whatever had happened there had taken place. So basically the energy was so oppressive that I had to get out because it was freaking me out, really, back in 1988.
And there's a part 2 to that question from one of our listeners. They want to know, what did you sense when we were at the Potter's Field? Do you remember, Joe?
Yes, I remember what the spirits are telling me now, reminding me, was it was sickness, disease. It was almost like what we're going through now with COVID. It was like going on a crowded bus, and there were all these sick people around, sneezing and coughing, and you were immersed in this. Because that was what actually, Kerriann, that was the feeling I originally got. We might have even gotten an EVP from there that said something about people being sick. Because there were all these indigent people that had died, that were buried in on these unmarked graves, that worked on this work farm. And so that was what there was really negative, sickly energy there. And that's why we had to get out of there. Otherwise, we would have gotten sick or ill or felt ill at ease. Good question.
All right, and we'll take more questions towards the end.
Yeah, feel free
So,
to.
yep. And again, I'm working this. Look at me with the
You're
technology.
doing great, Kerriann. This is her solo flight here.
Yes, having to run the board here. So basically, so now we've did the sit down interview with the people. We've done our, asked our questions. I've gathered the research. I continue to gather research when I go home. And then Joe goes back and he starts looking at what he's come up with, and I continue what I need to do. One of the most, well, I wouldn't say most difficult, but one of the things that takes the longest to do is to transcribe the interviews. I have to do that by hand because, again, I want to make sure that what I'm putting in the book is accurate. So I will handwrite everything with a pad and a paper. At the same time, I'm listening for EVPs. So when we play the EVPs, Joe will explain some of them are mine as I was interviewing, and I'm writing down the information that the people gave me, and all of a sudden you hear a spirit voice saying something. I got that at Katie's Bar and at Villa Paul Restaurant in Hampton Bays. So I have to do this process for the sake of the white noise EVPs and for the sake of getting the accuracy. So depending on how long the interview is, if the interview is an hour, it generally will take me 2 hours to transcribe. So the time is double.
Oh, you're fast, Kerriann.
So that's, well, it's very time consuming. That's the most time consuming. So you have that aspect. Then you have the continued research that I do on my end. Then after I go through and I have the transcribing finished, I take a highlighter and I highlight the most important things, because obviously I can't put everything in that people tell me. And sometimes they go off on tangents, so I don't need that kind of thing. So I'll do the highlighting process. And then basically the next thing I wait on is for Joe's report. And we started doing this with the last book and with this new book. And it's been very, very helpful because Joe gives me an overview of everything. So I'll let you explain a little bit about what you give me.
Sure.
Oh, and also on my end, I'm also going through my photographs, looking for apparitions, orbs, or anything else.
And you get some great stuff, like
Yeah.
you got it to catch him in, the photo of the girl in the
Yeah,
window.
but you'll see. We'll show you a picture.
Yeah,
of that.
I'm sorry, jumping ahead there.
So go ahead. So explain what you do.
Sure.
Your report to me.
Sure. Well, in the beginning, it was sort of a haphazard thing, right, Kerriann? I mean, we got some EVPs, we went back and forth with emails, but what started doing is I started writing, actually being more scientific and professional. I started doing these ghost investigation summary reports. So usually now what they are, I start out with a overview, which is basically what I said before, where I go in and I get my general impressions of the place. It's a happy place, a sad place. And I write it in a very prose style because we are, as one thing about Kerriann's books is they're written like you're there with us. She writes it as if you're joining us on the ghost investigation, which is really cool. So it's really, you're part of it. So I do my general impressions, and I also bounce back some information about what Kerriann and I talk about when we went there. That's my overview. Then I get into the details. And the first part I get into usually is, I guess, I talk about anything that occurred, anything out of the ordinary, paranormally speaking. We saw something, we heard something, we got a photo of an apparition. Then I go through my photos and my videos, if I'm taking any videos, and I'm looking through each one, just like Kerriann does. And I'm looking for apparitions, I'm looking for orbs, I'm looking for any light anomalies, any kind of streaks of light, anything that's not camera related. And if I find anything, I then catalog it and I send it to Kerriann for a review, and she lets me know if she sees it as a valid thing to bring into the book, or is it just something that maybe we really don't know about. You know, it's kind of here or there. Then I go through for her transcribing the interviews. For me, it's the EVPs, because, and I'll give you an example. You made this comment, we were at the Miller Ridge Inn, right? You said she was whispering, I caught it on tape, that she was whispering to, I think, Elena or someone. She says, it's going to take them 100 years to listen to this thing. Because you think about it, you watch these ghost shows, and you know they play and this whispery EVP, this white noise EVP, and it's like that, and says, oh, the ghost said, hi, I'm John. I didn't hear that, you know. to get that one thing, that one little 2-second soundbite, they might have had to listen to 3, 4, 5 hours of recording time. So it's really very, it's difficult to do. So what I use is I use some software. It's called Goldwave is one of my favorites. There's others. There's Audacity. There's a bunch of different tools you could use. And what I basically do is I've gotten to the point where I can scan through, well, two things, two very important things. One is I can scan through and I can look at the decibel level and basically the level of our conversation, Kerriann and my conversation. And when I see spikes that are not the same decibel levels as us, I know those are spirits talking in between our words. So I hone in on those. The other thing I do, though, what's really cool now, is the spirits know what we do. They know us. They're our friends now. So they know what I'm looking for, and I know what they're going to give me. So without a doubt, when we have a question and answer thing with the spirits, with the ghost box or the EVP recorder, they put the answer right where I'm looking for it. So what I do is I start taking out all the noise, all the dead air, and I end up with these beautiful transcripts of these real-time conversations with spirits. And what I mean by real-time is when you use the recorder, you basically say, hi, is anyone here? Give me an answer. And then you go back and you upload it to the computer and you play it. With the ghost box, it's real-time. We talk, they answer through the radio. We answer, they answer, go back and forth. So you end up with a live, real-time, 24/7 conversation, which I think is really awesome. And I always tell this to Kerriann, we talk about this in the lectures, that I really do feel with the technology, they've got all these tools now, that maybe 20, 30, 50, 100 years, you'll go to some location like a hologram on Star Trek, the holodeck, you'll run your credit card through, and you'll have a hologram image of grandma who passed, and you'll have a speaker on the side of the wall there, and you'll be able to talk to her real time and see her energy, and she can communicate with you. I mean, it sounds over the top, but Kerriann, I'm going to take this one from Kerriann's lecture because this is not our normal lecture. You know, if you think about, you know, back in the 1950s and the family's getting in the car and they're going on a trip and the husband's driving, you know, and the wife's got the road map, the paper road map. And Kerriann would say, you don't need that. Just press this button and this voice is going to tell you exactly where to turn to get to your destination. You'd sit back in the 50s, you would say, well, you're crazy. They didn't have computers till the 80s. I mean, personal computers. So, you know, it's not out of the realm of possibility that as the technology advances and we get more intuitive, more tuned in, that we will have a better communication system with the spirits. So that's basically what I do. So I write up my report. I look for apparitions, orbs in the photos, and then I go through the ghost box recordings and the EVP recordings on the little recorder, and I just basically try to put together some meaningful responses to our questions, and you'll be amazed what we get.
Yeah, some really good stuff. And as Joe had mentioned with the ghost box, what's great about that being in real time, the spirits pick up bits and pieces of what's already on the radio, and that's what they use. They use those words. So if you remember scanning with your thumb, you know, looking for different stations, it's continuously scanning. So the spirits can manipulate and pick out, hello, sale today. So when you listen to these after, you'll hear different voices. So male and female sort of go out the window. You have to look at it as just a voice that is speaking, coming through.
Yeah, in other words, it could be a woman that's talking with us, a spirit of a woman, but it could be a male voice because that's all they had on the radio that was speaking.
Exactly.
But I have to say this, Kerriann, as you know, you may not know this audience, but when you do this for a while, Kerriann and I have some spirit friends. You have William Sidney Mount, and I have a couple spirit friends. One is named Melissa, and I work with her. I've been working with her since 2006. And anyway, what's cool about it is when I get recordings from my spirit guide, they sound like her all the time, no matter what voice is on the radio, whether it's a male or female. The reason is she is able to morph the voice to make it sound like her, and she has the same voice every time. So I think with William Sidney Mount, he always sounds like William Sidney Mount. Robert Townsend Jr. always sounds like Robert Townsend.
And we're going to discuss this more. If you looked on my website, we have, these other webinars, and we're going to do one on signs and communication. I think that one's in 2 weeks. And we're going to talk about our experiences with spirit guides, with people from the book, people from history. So that's another interesting one. So basically, we're going to play the EVPs in a minute, but once I get Joe's report, I go through the whole thing. We discuss what's in there, and I decide what from his report will I include in the book. And it's great because he gives me some quotes, which is nice because the book reads more like a work of fiction, even though it's nonfiction, because I take the reader on the actual journey of what it's like for us to do these investigations. So they'll be talking back and forth. It's not just factual information that appears.
It's a lot of fun. It really, it's a lot of fun. Just so you know, we've been doing this for years, and I never looked to become a Ghostbuster or a psychic medium person. I have to remember that when I talk to people that, are down to earth, practical people, logical people, sometimes this stuff sounds like I'm nuts. When I say I have a spirit friend and she talks to me, I have recordings on the Ghost Box, which are clear. As if you were talking to a family member or a friend or a coworker. It's back and forth. And after a while, you just get so used to Kerry and I. How many investigations have we done together?
Well over 100.
Yeah.
Over 100.
After a while, it just gets so commonplace that you forget that sometimes I've accidentally freaked people out. I've gone up to them and said something, and I have to remember that.
But on the investigations, though, Joe, it's interesting when we are interviewing people that are open, who have never experienced these things or heard these things, and then all of a sudden they're part of it. And we had a lot of that for this next book.
Yeah, the next book is, I just want to say something.
Wowed by it, they hear it themselves.
They hear it themselves,
like saying, okay, they hear it right then and there.
There is one thing about this Zoom webinar format that's really cool, which is really side benefit. When we do these lectures in an auditorium or a library or some, you have these wall speakers or a PA system, it's sometimes hard to hear. And we always say, go home, listen to it on your headset where it's nice and clear. One real advantage to this is that we are all listening to this through a speaker or headset at home in comfort of your home. And you'll hear it really clear, much better than you would hear in an echoey type of a large room or a library or something. So I think it'll work real well tonight.
With that being said, we're going to put together our presentation now on the EVPs. Joe has put photographs of us on assignment, so you could sort of see. We have a lot of fun. Sometimes we joke around. Sometimes it's very serious. It just depends on what we're doing. So he will, tell you what's going on, and he'll show you when we have the white noise EVPs as opposed to the ghost box. And I think you'll be able to hear a difference. So have your volume turned up, and I'm going to hand it over to Joe now for this part of the presentation.
Okay. All right. We'll give this a try here. I'm going to try to share the screen. And we are ready to rock and roll. You ready, Kerriann?
Yep.
All right. Everybody see that? Can you see that, Kerriann?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So these are the white noise EVPs. And again, those are the noise, the regular recorder that just picks up the ambient noise of the room where the spirits have modulated their voice energy. Since they don't have vocal cords, they have to use this type of electronic method. And this first place is Villa Paul Restaurant, Hampton Bays. There I am out there. Minimal equipment. There's my little recorder. I don't know why I'm looking down. I think I'm tuning in. I'm trying to listen to something. Or Kerriann's telling me, watch out, don't drop, don't fall in the hole or something. Gosh, this picture. This reminds me of like the X-Files. We always kid each other. We always say Scully and Mulder.
This is in the haunted dining room of Villa Paul.
Villa Paul Restaurant in Hampton Bays, yeah. Yeah, it's a great place. All right, so here we go. So let's see. So we're going to play the recording, and here's we kind of say what we're hearing. So this one's really cool. So voice comments on Kerriann's work and says, I'm the photographer.
I can include it, I might be able to include it in the book.
Yeah, find out.
And I could put you, as credit for
Credit
it,
you as the
obviously.
photographer.
Yes. And,
That's really.
Did you all hear that? Anyone could just chat to Kerriann, just.
And what's interesting is I say yes after you hear I'm the photographer. Okay, I'm getting a yes here. And it was, so did I hear it in my subconscious and answer yes to it? And again, this is a white noise EVP, so we did not know that we had gotten this until I started doing the transcribing.
Right. And that's one thing too, is that when you talk to people that do the EVPs, you see, like you go on YouTube and you see these ghost hunting channels, and they always say, oh, well, the recording, the spirit either goes to the recorder or to you, or it can't do more than one. I don't buy that at all. I think the spirits, Kerriann can pick up on it intuitively, and it can also be recorded, because spirits have total control of their energy. The spirit's ability for us to pick up their energy or what they're trying to message to give us it's all about energy. It's all about energy. Okay. So now this is a really cool place. It's a creepy, sad place. But this is the, you want to talk about the Homeland Security just a little bit?
Yeah, this was one of those places that it was a lot of red tape to get us into. This is the Execution Rocks Lighthouse, and it's off of Kings Point, and Joe and I had to get special clearance to go with the United States Coast Guard in a 26-foot Homeland Security response boat to the lighthouse. And a lot of grisly things had taken place at this lighthouse during the Revolutionary War. The British would go out and round up what they called the American rebels, and they would chain them to the rocks. This is before there was a lighthouse there. They would chain them to the rocks during low tide, and as the tide came in, they would meet their watery demise, and they would drown. Others were, food for sharks and things, and there were always lighthouse keepers did not want to stay here. It was the only lighthouse on Long Island that in the contract it said a lighthouse keeper could leave at any time, because they constantly hear the sound of people screaming and wailing.
Yeah, and look at this place. I mean, how'd you like to? I mean, of course, this is decrepit because of all the years, but man, there was asbestos, bird dung, clam rot. I mean, it was gross. My hand, you can't see it, but
the light into the actual light now.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah. And of course, my hand goes into a bunch of whatever bird stuff. So Kerriann didn't warn me about that one.
Yeah.
Look at it. They're definitely in better shape than I was at the time, I'll tell you. Great. So there we're going in. And that's her, she's in her James Bond thing there. That's a great picture. Okay, so here you go. Now, you'll hear this, it's a wailing, and also you'll hear a man's voice after. So.
We should get an orb or something.
You will. Okay. This is all the house. Uh-huh. What was that?
That's probably opening the door, I don't know.
That's...
So that wailing, we all heard it, including the Coast Guardsmen. They thought it might be seagulls or something. You could hear it definitely, it was a woman wailing. It's interesting because Kerriann said, maybe we'll get an orb or something, and I said, you will. It's like, again, you've got the mediumship thing where we know something's coming, and then we get the evidence. So the spirits are tuned in with us. Catch them in, beautiful place out in Center Mauritius, Long Island. They've restored it now. You can go there and tour it. It's gorgeous. You're back in the 1800s. It's really beautiful in there. This is on the second floor, I think, right, Kerriann, when they were doing.
And you can see all the orbs. There's that huge one, and then
Kerriann, do you see my mouse?
Yeah.
Yeah. So look at that. Isn't that great? It's like he's got his hand out like he's explaining something, but the orb is right above it.
And then there's a bunch on my back and my legs, and there's one on the chair too, by the arm. So it's amazing how they come out. This was taken with Joe's camera. So this is in one of the older parts of the kitchen. And again, this is in Center Merchants. And now this was an apparition that I had gotten. I had taken several photographs. This is an upstairs room. And there was no ceiling, so we couldn't walk around. So this was taken from the same angle. I took several shots, and in only one of the frames, this girl appeared. You could see her, there's like a white part of her dress, and then her face, and there's a bow on top of her head. And then you could see the sleeves, and she has one hand resting in that one window pane. So this was one of my best photographs of apparitions that I had gotten for any of the books, because they're not as common as you think they are. Along with the apparition in orbs, we got some of these great EVPs.
Now there are forward EVPs. There are also reverse EVPs, which are rarer. So basically, you know how the old days used to play a record backwards, and you know, it would sound backwards. But the spirits have a way. I don't know how they do matrixing or how they do this fractals or something, but they can actually play a message forward and then put the rest of the message on the tape recorder backwards. So when you take both pieces, stick them together, this is one example what you get. So you get here, we're in this area, we used to be a dining room. In the old days, the parties used to be upstairs, not downstairs. So if you were invited upstairs, you were like in the club. And so you hear this man saying, "For Miss Emerald," almost like, okay, this table number 1 is for Miss Emerald. So she must have been very important there.
That's amazing.
Getting a chill now.
No.
It is amazing.
And notice how the decibel level of the spirit really blasts in, where we're all kind of talking at a lower voice. Right? Hades Bar, which many of you have probably been to. It's one of the most infamous haunted bars. And it looks like we're about to go and jam with some guitars and drums there. So Brian's the owner, and he used to be, I don't know, he's a law enforcement or a bouncer, but he was kind of talking about the spirits, like if the ghosts come in, he can beat them up, you know, and all this. So you hear this man, at the end of his diatribe, you hear this voice say, "You win," like the spirit's not going to mess with Brian.
I could deal with whoever has a problem here, and you know, let's go. What's your beef?
Right.
You know,
He used to be a bouncer.
yeah, and that's, you know, and I use that sometimes.
Right.
And you know, you can't beat up a spirit, but I'm not backing down. Like, ooh.
So right before he
This is one of
says,
mine, I must point out.
yes, this is one of Kerriann's EVPs. Yeah, she's getting them now too on her recorder. So right before he says, "I'm not backing," he says, you hear this guy say, "You win."
Oh, that's a good one.
At Deep Wells Farm. And this is Scott Posner. It's a beautiful place, Greek Revival Mansion out in St. James. Really beautiful place. All right, well, it looks like, yeah, have a good time there. All right, here we go. This, for any of you that are musically inclined, this is just a beautiful example of spirits playing musical instruments for us. We were actually in the music room, but there was no one in there except Scott and Kerriann and I, so you'll hear someone play this music. This is what they call an imprint, or, you know, EVP, one that's in the air, in the woodwork.
I would just ask him a human question, just anything you want.
Isn't that great? Who knows, maybe it was Beethoven or someone. Okay, in the Country House restaurant, and we were actually in the gravesite above the restaurant, which is out in the woods, looking for, try to find the graves of some of the family members. And that's Scott. That's Bob. He's the owner of the restaurant. He used to work there as like a waiter or a busboy, and he actually had a passion to buy the place. And so the spirit that I think the spirit and he were actually lived at one time back in the Revolutionary War. And he got back into the physical life, and she haunts the place. So.
And Country House is one of the most haunted places on Long Island.
Yes, definitely.
And it's haunted by the ghost of Annette Williamson, which this painting was done by a local artist who was driving by one morning and saw this vision over the house. If you look below in the picture, if you look below the sockets there, you can see the house. That was the painting. And when Joe and I went, we had gotten a tremendous amount of orbs. And in this one, it actually matched the girl from the painting, which we believe is Annette Williamson.
Yeah, and this orb picture actually is not as clear as some of the others, but you can sort of see, it's just in general with the colors. The orbs can be very colorful. So you can see the hair, the locks here, and the golden hair, and the purple here. So it's just kind of cool. And that orb followed us around as we walked around the property. It kept appearing in our camera. So here's two different voices that we montaged together saying, "Come," as we're going up the stairs.
And this was also around the servants' quarters.
The second one always runs like Alfred Hitchcock or something, you know. Okay, and this is Sagittarius Manor, another beautiful place. Just really beautiful. Where's that? That's Babylon, right?
That's in
Bayshore?
Islip, Bayshore area.
Bayshore, right? South Shore. Okay, after Kerriann says thank you, a spirit says hi.
Sit down.
Oh, sure.
Sit down. Thank you.
So that's more that whispery hi. That's the one you usually see on these ghost shows. Okay, Lloyd's Antiques in Eastport. And that's Lloyd sitting in his chair, actually sitting in the window. It was like a window case. You know,
This is where we did the interview, in the window.
Yeah, in the window. Yeah, that's really cool. He was a cool guy. Okay. So we're going upstairs, and Lloyd says, "Yeah, maybe a spirit will knock something off the table for you." So then Kerriann's like, "Yeah, sure." Then her camera goes flying off the camera. What do you call it? The flash unit goes flying off the table, hits the floor. And I knew it was Uncle Levi. I knew it was the ghost of Levi. And you hear this guy, sort of like the guilty guy, saying, "Yeah, like I'm over here, like, psst."
Levi.
And then you hear a spirit rap, which is very common. Spirits love to make this wooden knocking sound, sometimes in repetitive sounds like 3. Okay, Rogers Mansion, a beautiful place in Southampton.
And in this next CVP, you'll hear the ghost meter beeping. So we were definitely in an area where there was some kind of activity going on.
Pointing at the sink. The ghost, it's actually my hand is vibrating. Yeah, somebody's connecting to it.
And the William City Mound House in Stony Brook. Beautiful place. The first time we were just able to go outside, and we got treated to a few phenomena besides the EVPs. One of them was that screen door there? It opened and beckoned us. I mean, it was a windless day. The screen door is a screen, so wind would pass through it anyway, and it has a hard spring. If you let go of it, it snaps back closed. But the thing actually opened, beckoned, and then closed again for us. We had 2 hawks that then came out of nowhere, 2 of them, and circled over our heads after that. And this is just a piece of some of the EVPs we had from Mr. Mount. He makes me call him Mr. Mount. She can call him William, but I have to call Mr. Mount.
You know, I was going to give a speech on you, Mr. Mount. Sidney Mount was very unhappy about the spiritualist movement.
Okay, so now we're going to move to the Ghost Box EVPs. And again, we're back at Villa Paul. Okay, so these are going to be a lot clearer, and you'll see the difference when you're actually real time with the radio.
Okay, hi, spirits, hi. Hi.
Did you hear that?
You heard that?
Is there a dog here?
Yes.
One. It's hit
One.
one.
And this is in Huntington, right, Kerriann? Shops and Sweet Pieces.
An antique store.
Mm-hmm. That was the old Yankee peddler, I think, right?
Yep.
Hello. Hey. How are you?
Hello. We don't speak Spanish.
Okay, this is the Gray Horse Tavern, which now is a different restaurant, and that's in where's that? Bayport.
Bayport.
Bayport, yeah.
Hello, spirits. Spirit, yeah, answer there. Hey, how you doing? You like this bar? I heard yes. You know why we're here, right? Partly. We're writing a book. We're writing a book. She's writing a book. You miss being on this side? Yeah. How is Kate as a bartender? I'm sorry. Hello. Hello, hello. How are you? Beautiful.
And the reason I repeat back, it's really for validation, because we hear it. Sometimes the speech comes very fast from the spirits, so we usually repeat it to say this is what we all heard, and then it gives this extra way of validating evidence.
And with this one, we connected with one of the past teachers at the old schoolhouse in Cutchogue.
We'll do that. Did you just say? Perfect. Is Mr. Travis here? I think that said it. I think the voice said it's me.
Mr. Travis, how many students did you have the last year that you taught here?
I heard 5.
So, Mr. Travis, where did you go when you left Cutchogue?
Where did you go when you left Cutchogue, Mr. Travis?
The stairs.
He's coming over now. Did you stay in the area?
Me?
Yeah, for you.
Wow.
Did you enjoy being a teacher?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you hear? Did that sound like a yeah? Okay, good.
Are you happy that we're including the schoolhouse in the new book?
You know, Kerriann, that's a little British accent there.
I love that one.
All right, there's Deep Wells. Again, beautiful place.
It's scanning.
Are there kids here?
Do you hear yes? Hi, spirits. How are you?
Okay, and I think William's sitting out. And again, this is the Ghost Box. This was actually a pretty long recording. We just have an excerpt of it here, but and they really talked to us pretty nicely. You're welcome. You know, we were at the Ketchum in Central Arches. When we first went there, it was just a bunch of boards torn up, and now it's so beautiful in there. Have you ever been there? Could you take your soul there and take a look at how pretty it is? Love it. Let me know when you're back. Hi, you right here? Okay. Yeah, the Ketchum is really pretty. I think your house will be really pretty when it's done. We're going to walk downstairs and keep the Ghost Box on. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey.
Oh, so I hope that they all came clear. It's weird for us to not be able to see an audience. We're used to interacting. So I hope you enjoyed the EVPs and the photos. So at this point, if anyone has any questions, I see there's a few here. One is, did you have to change the way you investigated, interviewed during COVID? Luckily, we had most of the investigations finished before COVID happened. But then we had one out at the old burying ground in Sag Harbor And that was just the two of us, so we wore masks and it was fine. So with this next one coming up, we have to, you know, have social distancing and wear the mask for that. But luckily, like I said, most of the stuff was done beforehand.
And one thing to keep in mind that when we go in there, we're not going in there as you see it like on the YouTube, you know, the ghost shows where there's a million people going on this ghost hunt. It's just Kerriann and I, and then maybe one or two or three people. And a lot of times they do open their places up to us. Sometimes they say, just, you know, let us know when you want to leave and just close the door behind you. We can go there in any hour of the day or night, and just it's just us and the spirits. And of course, spirits, they can't catch or give us COVID.
Right.
I don't think they can. I don't know. That'd be an interesting thing.
Right. And then another question, what investigation did you most enjoy? I mean, for me, one of my favorite ones is always going to be the country house because I feel a big connection with it. I don't know. What would you say, Joe?
Boy, there's so many. I would say Longwood's really fun, along with the Smith Estate. But Country House is great. I mean, the first time we went there to interview Bob, the very first time, you were running a little late, and I met him. We talked a little bit, and then we sat in the dining room, one of the dining rooms, and the first thing he starts talking about the place, and there's a big flash of light behind him in one of the other rooms, and they don't allow cameras in there, you know, and there was really no one there, and I said, I just saw this big lightning flash. And he said, that's Annette. That's her thing. And we did a wrap up for a pilot movie or show, TV show at Kerriann's house in her dining room. And that followed us there. And when we were talking about her, the room flashed and the camera guys actually they said, whoa, what's that? Actually, so she follows us around. That's another one of your friends too.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of my favorite too.
And we're almost out of time, but I have another question. What was your most scariest investigation? I wouldn't really say that there was anything that was really scary. Like I said, the one at Potter's Field, was that, I guess that was for Ghost of Wyoming, the second one. Because it's not like what you see on TV. It's very positive. We stay away from anything that's negative in energy or things that are bad. So, you know, we really stay on the positive side of stuff.
You know, I think that when we went to Satan's Trails, was it? They call it Satan's Trails.
I know it sounds worse than it is.
It sounds worse than it is, but the Whacker House or something. Yeah, there was one or two we went to where the energy was kind of weird.
It was sort of like the woods, like the same thing when we went in search of Mount Misery Road and that. And
Sweet Hollow Road was, yes, there's a few places where the energies, I mean, I've been on a couple of my own investigations with that, Kerriann, you know, for my ghost hunting group. There was one place where I went solo. Usually you go with a group or another person, just because I think Kerriann used this many times. We're not really worried about getting hurt from the spirits. It's the people we have to worry about, the physical, because there are a lot of people on the edge in this business. And there was a place I went to where the people invited me in, and it got creepier and creepier. And I felt like they said, "You want to see the attic?" I said, "No, I'm done. I have a dinner appointment," you know. And I got myself out of there because I felt like it would be one of those places where you never leave.
Right.
So, but generally, we've been very positive. We don't do the Amityville horror stuff because it's just a lot of hype. And we don't remember this. I'll leave you with this. The spiritual world has a lot of people and a lot of spirits, different levels, different energies. So you get what you ask for. So if you're looking for trouble, there's negative energy out there. We always stay positive. We set sacred space before we start. And, you know, we go in with a plan of action because you are dealing with a portal to the other side. And that's one thing to do. If you're going to do any of this work or you want to investigate a place, just remember to set some guidelines, some boundaries. And if things get out of hand, call it a day and leave.
Good advice.
Good questions too.
All right. I think we're really out of time. I want to thank all of you. I wish I could see your faces and thank you. And I hope you enjoyed our presentation. As I had mentioned, there are several others this month on spirit communication, the difference between mediums and psychics. We're going to go toward the end of the month with some, funny stories, that encounters that we've had, and scary or creepy stories that we can come up with. We're also doing a special children's storytelling hour, because there's a new children's book that has been written based off of historic haunts of Long Island. So we're going to do that on the 30th. As I mentioned, I'm going to be doing a special presentation on Padre Pio, miracles, angels, and my novel, The Metal, which is based on a true story. We have a couple of library things specific to hunting historic haunts of Long Island, if you're interested in hearing more about the book.
Yeah.
And then I have one for historic crimes of Long Island.
And I'd just like to chime in too that on a couple of these other webinars, like the one with signs, signs and communication from the other side, we would encourage you, if you have some stories you want to share,
Right.
we always welcome, or you have an experience you want our handle on it. That makes it, because we like to hear your stories too.
Right.
And it also validates that, we're not the only ones doing this crazy work. And
Exactly.
because everybody's having experience. We all are spiritual beings in a sort of rent-a-car body while we're here on this planet. Our bodies are just not permanent, but our soul continues.
Right.
Thank
And
you,
then
everybody.
one last thing, if you are interested in purchasing any copies of the book, I now have a shopping cart available on my website at KerriannFlanaganBrosky.com, or if you forget that, you can get to it by ghostsoflongsisland.com. I'm offering free shipping until the end of the year, and I can also personalize them and sign them for you. So I can do that either, you can buy them directly through the website, through PayPal. If you'd rather do it quicker, I'm also taking Venmo now, and you can just shoot me an email and I could give you that information. So
Yeah, and
lots of options. We had to sort of
a lot of options.
reinvent
Yeah, and if you're interested in the future in a ghost investigation, or you'd like to go to one of my workshops, you can get to me from Kerriann's website, or you can just go right to my website, which is Joe G. It's Joeg, Joe G, mediumpi.com. Joe G, medium, the initials pi.com. Or Google me. I come up first in Google. So it's been fun. We appreciate you all joining us.
Thank you all for coming, and we hope to have you with us again for some of our future webinars. And thank you so much for the support during these very challenging and difficult times. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Good night, everyone.